The Camel Lotus Honda will not go down as one of the great cars in the history of motorsport. In 1988, this car got little success. It gave great frustration to its drivers, Nelson Piquet and Nakajima. I had the opportunity of driving the car in an old, disused airfield in the east of England called Snetterton. Not the most glamorous track in the world, and certainly no billiard table smooth racetrack. Very bumpy it was indeed. The car had certain problems. First of all, let me talk about the easy ones. The car, of course, was extremely powerful. But with a powerful engine, you have to have a suspension and steering geometry that goes with it to allow the driver to drive in a fashion that reaches the ultimate limit of adhesion and performance of the car. With the Lotus, that was not going to be the case. The car's rear end was very nervous. It had very little rebound control. The car felt as if the chassis may have been flexing. It certainly didn't give the driver a great deal of good feel and confidence. One impressive factor, of course, was the Honda engine. Enormous power. It had a strange way of applying itself, though. When I drove the Ford turbocharged engine, it was very gentle, very smooth, almost flexible in its characteristic. The Honda, on the other hand, was very abrupt, very instant. Everything that you did seemed to be a jerk and a move. If you put the power on, it cracked on. It didn't come gently on. And when you were going down the main straight and you took the power off, suddenly the engine's overrun had almost an incredible braking effect on the car. The aerodynamics of the car and the characteristics of the engine overrun were again very aggressive. It certainly wasn't a sympathetic engine to chassis relationship. It was something of an angry power unit with an unfriendly chassis. So it really wasn't a nice experience when you consider that Snetterton itself is extremely bumpy. But the greatest problem I had with the car was the driving position. The designers had decided that it had to be small in the cockpit, in the area restricted. Around the steering wheel and the fairing that came up to the driver, it really felt a very claustrophobic experience. And if a serious accident had occurred in a head-on situation, I feel that the cowling would have been much too close to the driver and could have caused further injury, and that was unnecessary in my mind. But worst of all was the position of the steering wheel. The instrument panel was almost unreadable, the steering wheel itself much too close to the instrument panel. And in fact, the master switch and the jack, the rubber jack that connects the microphone inside the helmet to the switch that allows him to speak to his pit on the radio, was so close to the steering wheel that at the very beginning of my run, I think on the third or fourth lap, going through a corner called the bomb hole, I actually got my driving glove jammed between the master switch and the radio jack and the wheel itself. I couldn't move the steering wheel one way or the other, and in fact I spun the car in the process because I switched the engine off without intent. I had to take my glove off and remove the steering wheel to untangle the mess. Now maybe I was wearing driving gloves that are a little bit heavier than what Nakajima or Piquet wears. The car, of course, was exciting to drive, but not in a comfortable way. I felt the car was over-nervous, was too highly strung. And really, I suppose the results of the year of 1988 spoke for themselves. It was not a car that Nelson Piquet would have wanted to drive too many more times. So perhaps one of the more disappointing cars that I drove in the whole test.